3, 2, 1.
I want you to imagine your biggest fear. Whether it's spiders that make your skin crawl or the thought of speaking in front of an audience that sends you running for the hills, fear is common to every member of the human species. Although we are all well aware of what we are afraid of, in many cases we are unsure of where that fear originated. Sometimes fear and other emotional responses can be traced back to a psychological procedure known as classical conditioning. So today, we will explore conditioning in depth, examining the actual procedure, including its limitations and how it can help shape our emotions to our environment. So to fully understand conditioning, we first have to discuss the actual process. This procedure was first discovered by Ivan Pavlov. Now, emotions are of course abstract, but through his research, Pavlov found that abstract things like feelings could be measured scientifically by recording the physical changes associated with the emotion. So for example, if we wanted to study fear, we would record physical changes such as increased heart rate or sweating. But how do we come to cause these changes? This procedure involves elements known as stimuli, which is just a fancy scientific term for anything in our environment that stimulates or causes a response. There are two types of stimuli. The first is an unconditional stimulus that almost always, or in other words, unconditionally, causes the response to occur. The other type of stimulus is a conditional stimulus. This stimulus is neutral prior to conditioning and can only come to cause a response on the condition that it is paired with the unconditional stimulus. During conditioning, the conditional stimulus is repeatedly presented before the unconditional stimulus for a behavior, and after several pairings in this manner, the conditional stimulus can come to cause a response even when it's presented alone. To make this easier to understand, take the fear of thunderstorms, for example. We almost always see lightning, a conditional stimulus, followed by the sound of thunder, an unconditional stimulus, and we may jump at the sound, which is our response. After several times of seeing lightning and thunder paired together, we may come to wince when we see lightning, even if thunder doesn't follow it, and at that point we would say that conditioning has occurred. A study in the Netherlands in 2011 showed that people can even become afraid of odors through the conditioning process. Participants were presented with two smells. The first was the smell of peaches that was always followed by shock, and the second was an unpleasant chemical odor that was not. By the end of the experiment, participants had learned to fear the smell of peaches even when a shock wasn't given. So in other words, they had been conditioned to fear the smell. On the other end of the emotional spectrum, advertising is another way that we can be conditioned, almost on a daily basis. Advertisers pair their products with ideas of power and prestige or images of beautiful people because those are unconditional stimuli for the release of feel-good chemicals like dopamine in your brain. And by doing this, they're attempting to ensure that you will feel that same positive emotion when you see their product. A study in Taiwan found that this can be intensified by the use of celebrities. Their research found not only did the use of a celebrity endorser increase positive feelings towards a sporting event, but that positive feeling was increased even more if the celebrity had a direct tie to the advertised event itself. To put this into context, think of any commercial you've watched recently. Do you think that if that commercial had used your favorite celebrity, you may be more likely to enjoy watching that commercial? And furthermore, do you think that your increased enjoyment of the commercial may lead to increased interest in the product? Research like this study would say that generally, the answer is yes. Now that we've seen how conditioning helps us to acquire our emotional responses, it's only fitting that we show how it can help us to overcome them as well. Many recent efforts in the use of conditioning as a form of therapy involve VRET, or virtual reality exposure therapy. Here, patients are virtually exposed to their fear gradually and in a safe setting until they're comfortable enough to actually be exposed to the object or situation. In the UK, for example, VRET was recently used to treat the fear of public speaking. Patients were presented with one of three types of virtual audiences, either a positive, a neutral, or a negatively reactive audience. The results of this study showed that when either a positive or a neutral audience was used, fear was substantially reduced after several treatments. This wasn't the case with the negative audience, but that just shows that if you still have a stimulus for anxiety, anxiety will continue to be experienced. At this point, we should note that conditioning is not without its limitations. First and foremost, conditioning rests on the law of contingency, which just means that the conditional and unconditional stimulus must almost always be paired together in order for conditioning to occur. So for example, if we were to see lightning a bunch of times and it wasn't regularly followed by thunder, we wouldn't wince when we saw the lightning. Also, a study in New Zealand found that conditioning effects seem to be diminishing over time in certain areas, especially when it comes to the aforementioned advertising. Their research found this is mostly due to the fact that people are becoming more aware of those advertising techniques being used on them, and once you're aware that you're being conditioned, you can, of course, actively choose to resist the process. Despite these limitations, conditioning still has the capacity to reach virtually every area of our lives. For example, why does the sight of a water bottle make us thirsty? Why does a spider make our skin crawl, or an audience make us break out in a sweat? The answer may be that we have been conditioned to do so. To better understand conditioning, then, may be to better understand ourselves. So in closing, do not simply ask what you are afraid of, but also if you have been conditioned to be afraid.
Actually, I thought that was even better.
That's good.
Dad, which one was better?
I got to get everybody in
Sorry,
here.
I appreciate it. Sorry, he's the
Hello, I'm number 7.
critical.
Megan should get bonus points because she has 7 people.